So it looks like we're here again, saying goodbye to yet another Doctor, and damn, those numbers are getting up there. It's 16, maybe 17 if Billie Piper's a one-off. That's near in the 20s, that's insane. But there's something about this regeneration that just feels so different. It's been over a week now since Ncuti Gatwa left the role of the Doctor, and I still have this inner sadness of him leaving. And as a fan, that doesn't come as a direct shock, but I still just cannot believe for one moment that he has actually left the show. Like, it just doesn't compute in my mind. By now, anyone who watches Doctor Who should know of regeneration. It's the way of keeping the show alive. When an actor wants to step down, we can get a new actor in and the show continues on. And in the show, it's a way for the Doctor to keep surviving when he otherwise wouldn't have. There's also this Doctor Who cycle that kind of comes with regeneration for the fans, where you have a Doctor that you really love, and you cannot imagine the show not existing without them. And then this Doctor regenerates, and you're so sad that it's happening, and you can't believe it. And the new Doctor comes, you don't want anything to do with them. You don't even want to acknowledge that they are the new Doctor. But with time, you grow to love them like you do all the others. And then, when their time ultimately comes, the cycle repeats. You have a Doctor that you really enjoy, they then regenerate, the new one comes along, etc. And so me being upset that Ncuti's left here is not really unexpected. That was always bound to happen, whether he left now or years down the line. We're just currently in that state of missing the old Doctor, because the new one isn't even here yet. We haven't had an episode for them, for that love of the Doctor character to be taken over by. Despite this, I still feel like this one's different. And to me, the only other Doctor that we can kind of compare this regeneration to is Christopher Eccleston's Ninth Doctor, as both Christopher Eccleston and Ncuti Gatwa have very comparable times as the Doctor. In Christopher Eccleston's run, he had 13 episodes, and in Ncuti Gatwa's run, he had 18, but 3 of those were Doctor Light. So in a way, it's comparing 13 full episodes to 15, so they're the closest of the New Who Doctors in terms of screen time appearance. And both of these runs are actually very short when you compare it to every other Doctor. Along with this, they were technically both the Doctors for the start of a new era of the show, and both having premature exits. It's made clear that Christopher Eccleston, during his Series 1, was not meant to leave at the end, and that behind-the-scenes issues caused him to bow out. And in a way, we've got the same here with Ncuti Gatwa. Sure, he goes to Season 2, but he was not meant to leave at Season 2. Rusty Davies has said clearly that he had a 4-season plan for this new era and this new Doctor, and Ncuti Gatwa was meant to be part of that plan. And so we're having Ncuti Gatwa leave here directly in the middle of his intended tenure. Now, despite them both having a shorter runtime, and their time cut short, I think there's one key difference between the two. When you look at Series 1 with Christopher Eccleston, there is so much setup in that season that ties into the finale. The first way they do this is to introduce a bad wolf. It's a name that's just sprinkled throughout the season. People might not even be fully aware of it, or they might be thinking, let's just park that, I don't know what that means. But it is so integral to that finale, and is really rooted in the companion Rose, and subsequently the cause of the Ninth Doctor's regeneration. You don't know it at the start, but all these seeds of bad wolf are what turns Rose into this godlike being that can just erase Daleks from existence and make Captain Jack immortal. But in doing this, they were able to use this concept of her being overpowered to say it's going to kill her, and therefore have the Doctor trade his life for hers, thus making Bad Wolf, this tie throughout the whole season, the reason to his regeneration. Series 1 obviously has great serialization anyway, with many callbacks all throughout. Within the 3rd episode, we have the Time Rift, and that comes back later within Boomtown. Within the Long Game, we have Satellite 5, and that's the location of the finale at the end. There's so many things throughout Series 1 that just build up to that ending finale, along with the direct Bad Wolf causing the regeneration, that it all just comes together so nicely at the end. It doesn't feel like it was a last-minute decision or a rewrite for Eccleston to leave. That felt like it was the plan, and it felt complete. It uses all of those 13 episodes to build to the departure of that character. Now, you don't always need to do this. Not every other Doctor has their whole run leading to their regeneration, but there's at least set up for it. When we look at Ncuti's run, there's not really anything that ties into the Doctor giving his life for one child. His death is a sacrifice for this one child that may or may not be his. This child did not exist during Season 1, or even throughout most of Season 2. The closest thing we have is that in his first episode, The Church on Ruby Road, he does everything he can to save the one child that everybody forgot. which is Ruby. And they directly tie that into that final episode, and I quite enjoyed the reality war, so for me that explanation quite worked. But it's not as rooted within his era or that final season he had. And so whilst that does work in the episode as an explanation and actually makes sense as to why he'd do it, but there was just less build up to him doing that. And so you can't even compare the feeling of losing the Ninth Doctor in Series 1 to this. There is no other Doctor regeneration that feels like this. And I think another key reason for this is the character's story arc. Every other Doctor has some sort of character arc they go on. With the Ninth Doctor, because of his shorter run, it's mainly him coming off of the Time War and trying to re-love the universe through Rose's eyes. With the 10th Doctor, he goes through multiple companions, with Martha following the loss of Rose and the Doctor ignoring her because he can't go over Rose, and Donna coming in after Martha leaving, with the Doctor realising he probably just needs a friend instead. It all feels connected and that the Doctor has changed over time. With the 11th Doctor, he kind of forms a family with Amy and Rory, and when he loses them, he goes into this sort of depression, and the only thing that brings him out of that is a good mystery with Clara. With the 12th Doctor, he questions whether he's a good man. He tests Clara's trust in him, but ultimately she realises that he is. He then loses Clara, but goes way too far to try and save her, and he realises those mistakes. And he settles for a life of just doing his best at being kind. He then regenerates into Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, who essentially takes that motto on board. She is the most joyous Doctor, she loves everything, she tries to be kind at any moment. But despite this, it feels like she's keeping emotions inside. Which is what you'd expect after learning you're the original Time Lord, and that you've got all these extra lives you've lived, as well as having a part to play in half the universe being destroyed. And you truly feel that weight when she defeats the Master in the end, despite him killing her. And then with Ncuti's Doctor, it feels like he's been cut short. It feels like he was midway through his journey. You have the first season, where he literally finds joy in everything, that he is brought to tears at any moment the joy of life is threatened. He has this extra sense of care for life that we haven't quite seen with other Doctors. And this all comes together with the finale with Sutekh, where he wipes out every living thing, and you see how that affects him. And throughout the season, after the Timeless Child reveal, he is then brought together with this person Ruby, who is very much like him, and who cherishes her family, and almost tells him to go and do the same, and it brings on this thought of Susan. We go into season 2, and we obviously have heavy ties to Susan, with the Interstellar Song Contest coming up, and a lot of weight put on him having children, with the prior season mentioning that he may not have had children yet, despite having a granddaughter in the past.
If you've got a granddaughter, that means you've got kids.
Well, not quite.
There's all this setup for him returning to his family that we never reach. In this season, it also feels like he's trying to distract himself. In the first season, it felt like he was this healed Doctor, but it clearly seems here that he hasn't. The effects of Sutekh and the prior season have affected him, and he's almost going back into his old ways. You see a darker side to him coming back out. It feels like he's distracting himself with a mystery and adventures with Belinda, much like the 11th Doctor. And it all comes to a close with him sacrificing himself for a potential daughter. And like we've previously discussed, that can kind of fit in with his storyline, but it still feels like his character arc was cut short. It feels like there was more to tell for this character. It doesn't feel like a good ending point, and I don't think the cause of his regeneration fit with where he was at. I just feel like generally there was more to tell. I love the regeneration scene, and I love the sentiment and how it fits with his persona of the Doctor. I just think it impacts you more with it feeling like it's out of place. It just generally feels incomplete, something in which every other Doctor run does not feel. No matter how much you love a Doctor, no matter how much you love an era, they all feel like they're at the right end. You could tell more stories, but you don't need to. Whereas with 15, it feels like we're missing out. It does feel like there is more story to tell. But what do you think? Do you agree with me? Do you also feel really upset that Ncuti has left this early? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you haven't yet subscribed and you did enjoy this video, please consider subscribing. And with that all said, I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.